tased me without any warning for no reason. I had no idea why.
Tacoma police used force to arrest and handcuff a deaf woman after she called 911 for help. Now, instead of getting an apology, she ended up bloody. She was thrown in jail for nearly 3 days without an interpreter before all charges were eventually dropped. After months of digging, Cairo 7 team investigative reporter Chris Halsne uncovers serious questions about the official police version of what happened.
Some veteran officers tell me responding to a fight call is often chaotic. They have to make split-second decisions to stay safe. But here's the real question. If they make an error in that situation and arrest the victim instead of the alleged assaulter, will they admit it?
And ever since, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's just been stressing me out, wondering what's going to happen next.
When LaShawn White found herself under attack in her own apartment, she turned on her special video-equipped phone.
Right now, this is serious.
And began frantically communicating in sign language to a deaf help relay service.
She's fighting at me, and then she chokes me. She comes right at me.
The words on this 911 call are LaShawn's, but the voice is that of a certified ASL interpreter speaking to Tacoma Police Dispatch. Internal police records show Officer Ryan Kuskovich and his partner were outside LaShawn's apartment complex in less than 6 minutes. Dispatch texted them along the way. Person doing the hitting is a Sophia. Victim is LaShawn White. According to dispatch officer communication logs, the patrolmen were repeatedly provided information that the victim could not hear a thing.
I'm deaf. I can't hear if they're out front knocking or whatever. I can't. No, are they going to the front of the back? Where are the police at? The police want her to go outside the front door. Oh, they're here? Okay, I'm on my way to meet them. I'm going right now.
LaShawn showed our cameras her route straight out of her basement apartment door, up one flight of stairs, and through the double glass doors leading to the street. A 30-second trip. To LaShawn, what happened next defies common sense, especially for a woman with no criminal record, no arrests, and just one minor traffic violation ever. Within seconds of running outside to meet police, Officer Kuskovich pulls out his taser and fires a 2-barbed electric wire into LaShawn's ribs and stomach.
You know, all I'm doing is waving my hand in the air, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the ground. And then I'm being, handcuffed. It was almost like I blacked out, I think, because then I was so dizzy and disoriented.
Witnesses say LaShawn began bleeding heavily from her knuckles and that her face hit the pavement after the taser jolt. Pictures acquired by Team 7 investigators also show injuries to her cheek, chin, ribs, and arms.
Yes, right there, behind.
Worse yet, to her, was the incredible confusion that came with suddenly being in handcuffs, under arrest, and without the ability to communicate with the Tacoma officers, neither who knew any sign language.
The next thing I know, they took me into jail. And they told me, please stand up, you're going to jail. I said, what? What have I done? I couldn't figure it out. I had no idea what was going on.
Cairo Team 7 investigators canvassed the area near the taser incident for witnesses. Margaret Sims's apartment is right over the spot. She says it was around 11:30 at night and dark when she heard LaShawn screaming in pain and ran to the balcony.
I hollered down and I said, she's deaf and can't speak.
Sims spoke with the officers while LaShawn was still in handcuffs. She says they admitted there was a misunderstanding.
They had faced her because he thought she was coming at him. Or what she was doing was running to him, but he said stop, but he didn't put his hand up, he just said stop. And she couldn't understand that.
I said, she's deaf, she couldn't even hear you.
Another apartment tenant, Geraldine Warren, says she heard the whole commotion too.
When I got outside the door, he was standing there. I said, aren't you supposed to say, how, like that?
That's exactly what both officers told their superiors after the fact. Kuskovich wrote, I yelled for White to stop and held my right hand up to signal for White to stop. White ignored my commands. He added White was making a loud grunting noise, had a piercing stare in her eyes, and had a clenched right fist in the air. Using this statement as proof, Tacoma police hit LaShawn with 2 criminal charges, simple assault and obstruction of a law enforcement officer. They then carted her off to jail.
Why would she run at the police in an assaulting manner?
We asked Cairo TV's police conduct consultant and former Bellevue police chief Don Van Blaricom to review conflicting accounts of LaShawn's arrest.
A taser is a very useful device under the circumstances that necessitate its use. But it's too easy to use and it's frequently used too quickly, and this looks to me like one of those cases.
State law on this topic isn't murky at all. It says law enforcement agencies conducting an investigation shall appoint and pay for a qualified interpreter throughout the investigation. That simply did not occur for LaShawn White.
A federal disabilities rights group has launched an investigation into whether an innocent deaf crime victim was mistreated by both Tacoma police and the Pierce County Jail.
This action comes just a few weeks after investigative reporter Chris Halsne first exposed how the woman was incarcerated for about 60 hours over Easter weekend without access to an interpreter. Chris?
Jailers say they handled this deaf inmate with special care after police dropped her off, but admit they never provided an American Sign Language interpreter to explain to her why she was being held. That denial might be at odds with federal law. Deaf, tased, then thrown in handcuffs after calling Tacoma police for help. LaShawn White entered the Pierce County Jail injured and confused.
All I wanted to do was cry. I was so upset. I just couldn't believe what was happening to me.
In the booking area, White says she wanted to explain that police made an error, arresting her for obstruction because she couldn't hear their command to stop. Although the jail provides interpreters for virtually every other spoken language, sign language isn't on the list.
And I kept thinking, what am I doing here? And I was doing my best to get along with people because I was nervous. I don't know who's in there.
Adding to the lack of communication, White's one phone call was on a broken, outdated TTY device, a device we found still in use with a bad battery 2 months later.
And that, unfortunately, is the real reality of discrimination, whether someone intends to discriminate or not.
David Carlson is an attorney with Disability Rights Washington. That agency is designated by the governor and mandated by Congress to investigate potential abuse and neglect of people with disabilities. Carlson says Team 7 investigators have uncovered some troubling policies and practices at both the jail and with police.
To the community of people who are deaf and hard of hearing, it can really scare people off of asking for the police's help.
We make certain that they're fed, we make certain that they're safe. That they're
Jail Administrator Lieutenant Patty Jackson believes Pierce County handled White appropriately, but remains open to suggested improvements.
No, thank you.
Like adding a video phone for sign language interpreters.
We understand there's complications, we understand fear, but we take great pride in making certain that whether it's somebody that speaks Russian, somebody speaks Spanish, somebody that is deaf, somebody that is blind, we make certain that we're doing what we can.
Even though prosecutors dropped all charges, White now, for the first time in her life, has an arrest on her record. Just as troubling to her, she can't seem to shake a newfound fear of police.
It's hard for me, and I worry because is this going to happen again? Is this going to happen to other deaf people in the community too?
Tacoma police still aren't talking to us about how they handled White. However, if they don't respond to questions from the attorneys at Disability Rights Washington, they risk drawing the attention of the U.S. Justice Department.
And Chris, you mentioned those video phones. Would that be expensive, too expensive to put in?
It isn't going to cost hardly anything at all. Basically, all you need is an internet connection, a web camera, video monitor. There's no additional cost for a sign language interpreter at all because that's a service that we already pay for when we pay taxes on our phones.
A deaf crime victim tased, arrested, and jailed by Tacoma police wants $4.5 million in damages. The just-filed federal lawsuit mirrors what Cairo 7 investigative reporter Chris Halsne first revealed last summer. Chris.
Unreasonable force, loss of liberty, violations of the disability rights laws, it's all here in this complaint. Now the city of Tacoma and the Pierce County Jail have to convince a federal judge they didn't mistreat a disabled suspect.
I said, what? What have I done?
LaShawn White called police for help, but our investigation found when officers arrived, they face-planted her on a sidewalk with a taser stun. White has been deaf since birth and could not hear their reported commands to stop.
They all blew it so completely.
White's attorney Chris Carney says Tacoma PD compounded their mistake by leaving his client in jail for 60 hours over the Easter holiday weekend, never providing her with a sign language interpreter.
Somewhere along the line, they've got to get the message that they have to stop discriminating against deafness.
This federal lawsuit could be an expensive one for taxpayers, on top of wanting $3 million from Tacoma and $1.5 million from the Pierce County Jail. White is asking the courts to order street cops like the officer who tased her to be adequately trained in dealing with the deaf and hard of hearing. Cairo 7 checked and discovered still today the city of Tacoma provides zero such training for their police force.
We called every city council person, the city prosecutor's office, the police. Nobody can comment. They say due to pending litigation. Jail administrators, however, do tell me they made special accommodations for LaShawn White and followed all disability rights laws.